and welcome back to Rodent Sports, where this time we're going to talk about the other bit of March Madness that's about to take place. No, not the NCAA basketball tournament, which I've had plenty to say about.
T9!
FIFA World Cup qualifying. We are hitting another international break, which by the time you see this video may have already commenced. And Thursday, playoffs are starting. And that's what we're going to talk about. The UEFA, which is Europe, their playoffs, and Africa, which is their playoffs, is about to start. And we're going to start with UEFA because there's been some things that have happened that have shortened the schedule coming up and have changed the schedule. And, of course, that is to do with the unfortunate circumstances in Ukraine with the war there between Russia and Ukraine, the Russian invasion. The Ukrainians asked for a delay. They are in path A of the playoffs, and they were set to play Scotland in Scotland on March 24th. They asked for a delay, which UEFA granted. So now Scotland-Ukraine is going to be June, and they will play the winner of Wales-Austria, who will play March 24th in Cardiff, and then the winners will play each other in June. So very interesting, the effects there. By the way, the winner of the Scotland-Ukraine game is supposed to be the host, but of course, that will not be possible for the Ukraine if they win, even if everything is done by June. If everything with that war is finished by June and the Russians are out of there, it might not be possible. And who knows if the war may still be going at that point. But so that's the first one that was affected. Path B, the Russians were in the playoff, and they were set to host Poland, and if they had won, host the final. Well, UEFA, after originally going with the ridiculous Olympic line of, well, you can't compete as Russia, but you'll compete as the Russian soccer organization, and then got shamed for doing that, they booted Russia out. So Poland gets a bye into the final, which is March 29th at home, and they will face the winner of Sweden and the Czech Republic. That will be a very interesting playoff. Sweden has actually done very well since the guy that was supposed to be by far their best player and one of their best players ever, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, retired. They've actually done better in international tournaments. They had a very good European Championships the previous summer. They will be a heavy favorite against the Czech Republic, who were one of these teams that did not finish top two in their qualifying group, but got in as a Nations League winner. And it's way too long to explain how that works, except that they got in, and so they're kind of getting a second chance. So I would expect Sweden to win, and Poland-Sweden will be very interesting because Poland will have the best player on the field, Robert Lewandowski.
Oh, damn!
Plays for Bayern Munich, who's been a finalist for the World Player of the Year, the Ballon d'Or, a few times now, and may very well be a finalist in this year coming up. He's been setting all sorts of records in the Bundesliga.
Germany, Bundesliga
For Bayern Munich, and may continue to break some more while he's there. So that will be a very interesting final with the Poles having home advantage, and because of that, they'll be favored. But Sweden's got a knack of getting through these playoffs, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what's going to happen there. Then Path C is the only one that's been unaffected by all this craziness. Two semifinals, March 24th. Both of the home teams are going to be heavily favored. Italy, who if they win will host the final, I believe. Italy will not host the final. Let me rephrase that. Italy against North Macedonia. Italy were minutes away from qualifying automatically in their group, but Jorginho, their usually very reliable penalty taker, actually missed a penalty. And then Alexander Mitrovic for Serbia scored a header with about 5 minutes to go in Italy in the final group game to win that qualifying group and put Serbia through and put Italy into the playoffs. And if they win, they'll have to play the winner of semifinal 6, which is either going to be Portugal or Turkey. Turkey had to get rolling towards the end of their qualifying to pinch second place in their group. They just missed out on being a seeded team, so They were in the other pot with the other unseeded runner-ups plus the 2 Nations League winners. Turkey's been usually tough in these playoffs, but again, Portugal is at home and will be at home if they win. The Portugal-Turkey winner will host on March 29th in the final. And, of course, they have Cristiano Ronaldo, who maybe disputedly for some, but just set the record for goals scored at the top at the top levels in soccer. Again, some dispute because of nobody really knows how many goals Pele scored in club football and those sorts of things. And Romario as well has a claim on that record.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes. Look at you.
But he's scored an absolutely amazing amount of goals. And, of course, even at 37, is still banging the goals in for Manchester United. Italy, Portugal, if that is how it comes off, would, of course, be a heavyweight fight in a main event sort of situation. So we have Path A and Path B. Path B will be settled, even though Poland only has to win one match to get there. And Path C will be settled. Path A will be deferred till June, which is when the intercontinental playoffs are going to take place. So that's Europe. And now we have Africa. And Africa is fun because Africa is by far the toughest qualifying setup to get out of. It changed a little bit this year in that you had a first round that was 2-legged ties with what would be considered the lesser teams of the minnows in those groups, and then they were all put in these 4-team groups with the teams that had already been advanced through. You had to win your group to go through, or you were out. And now you having done that, the 10 group winners are now been drawn into two-legged playoffs. The first leg's March 25th, the second leg's March 29th, and it's just all 5 matchups in Africa are absolutely fascinating. We'll start with what is the biggest heavyweight matchup, and that is a rematch of the African Cup of Nations, which just took place a few months ago, Egypt-Senegal, which Senegal won in a penalty shootout after a 0-0 draw in the match. And you're talking about big stars, in this case, teammates, Liverpool teammates opposing each other, Sadio Mane for Senegal, Mohamed Salah for Egypt. Senegal's has been a great team, is a great team. It is not a one-man team either.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
They've got they've got one of the better African coaches around in Aliou Cisse. He's one of the better African coaches on the continent. But you've got Sadio Mane, Ismail Assar, who broke out for Watford this year and is turning into quite the player. Famara Jeju, who's in Turkey now but played for Bristol City in the second division in England and was really terrific for them. Idrissa Gueye, who once played for my favorite team in England, Aston Villa, and who is a mainstay in PSG in Paris Saint-Germain's midfield. So that's one side. And on the other side, you have the player who is arguably the best player on the planet right now in Mohamed Salah for Egypt. You've had an Egyptian team that, after struggling at times and maybe not living up to their billing, has turned into a really, really good team in the last few years. Again, helmed by some absolutely fantastic players like Mohamed Salah, for instance. They have Trezeguet, who is not on Villa anymore, but played for Villa for a few years and has come up with some big goals here and there when Egypt has needed it, and that's just going to be a wonderful game. And I'm looking forward to both of those legs of that. So that's the first leg. That's the first playoff, and again, aggregate score, 2-legged match, home and away. It's going to be absolutely outstanding. And then Cameroon, Algeria. Algeria, if you go by goal difference, was the most dominant team in qualifying. Algeria ended up with only 14 points because they did draw 2 games with the second place team in their group, Burkina Faso, but ended up plus 21 in goal difference as they thrashed bottom team Djibouti a couple different times. the Desert Foxes have qualified, I want to say, for 5 World Cups in a row, and they boast your 2 highest goal scorers from the last round, which is going to come as a surprise to no one. The 2 highest goal scorers in the second round of qualifying in Africa: Islam Slimani, who has been just a fabulous player for the last several years for Sporting Lisbon, and Riyad Mahrez, who plays for Manchester City, and of course before that played for Leicester when they had their Miracle Championship team. 2 absolutely wonderful players. But they are up against Cameroon, who were semifinalists at the African Cup of Nations as the host, a long-time power in African football, the Indomitable Lions, and they've got some pretty talented players themselves, and I certainly wouldn't write Cameroon off, even though it's a tough draw having to play Algeria, because Algeria has been so good the last few years, and they've been clutch. They've been in these playoffs many times. They've found a way to win when things have been conspiring against them. And of course, at the World Cup in Brazil, were about the only team that really threatened to upset Germany when Germany went and won the World Cup. I mean, they were tremendous and lost to them in extra time. And boasting guys like Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting, who is at Bayern Munich, and even at 32 is still, a really top player. Gino Nana, who plays for Bordeaux, is a guy who's only got a few caps, but he's young and he's got a lot of talent. Andre Frank Zambo Anguissa, who scored a fantastic goal for the Cameroonians to help clinch that group for them, plays at Napoli, really, really tremendous player, and helped, the goal he scored, I think it was against Ivory Coast, to clinch that group. Absolutely outstanding. And again, for me, most of these are toss-ups. Most of these two-legged ties are toss-ups. Cameroon, Algeria is no exception. Then we have, you'll see it behind me, the shirt behind me that you see on the video is a jersey my sister got for me. It is a Ghanaian jersey. It is the jersey of with the number on it of Michael Essien, one of Ghana's greatest footballing exports, and they sure have had a lot of them over these many years. Ghana, not quite. I mean, most of the golden generation is gone now, but they managed to find a way through that group of theirs, just squeezing past South Africa on goals scored. Both teams had 13 points. Both teams had +4 goal difference. Ghana ended up squeaking through on goals scored, and that was down to, I think, a goal right near the end of that group in the final game. Andre Ayew's penalty against South Africa in the last group game in November was enough to give Ghana the win in that group by 1 goal. So they still have the 2 Ayew's, Andre and Jordan, who have both played in England a long time and are very talented, very top-class players. And they play Nigeria, who, has come along nicely. They've had a lot of instability, which has been tough on them with their football federation and all that. But they're another one that usually has found a way in the last few years to play well in some of these tournaments. And they did that mainly under the great Stephen Keshi. And, of course, nearly qualified in the last World Cup, nearly got out of that group in the last World Cup. Only Messi magic prevented them from doing it. And again, Kelechi Iheanacho, who played at Manchester City, now plays at Leicester, is a threat every time he steps on the field. Alex Iwobi, who actually just scored a vital winner for Everton in stoppage time to give them 3 big points, and was once at Arsenal. Wilfred Ndidi, who's one of the best holding midfielders in England, who plays for Leicester. So, I mean, again, there's some really talented players here for Nigeria. And like I say, I don't know how anybody can call this particular tie with any certainty. I mean, I think for me, it's another one where it's probably going to be very exciting and go down to the last. Ghana, Nigeria, and again, two teams in Ghana and Nigeria that you are used to qualifying for tournaments, and so one of them is going to be out. And then these last two are interesting. There probably is a clear favorite in both, but they're both feature teams that can qualify for the World Cup for the first time. DR Congo managed to win a very competitive Group J, and are in the playoffs for the first time, but they are facing Morocco, the only African team to win all 6 of their qualifying games. Morocco was dominant in their group against Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, and Sudan. They played 6, won 6, conceded 1 goal, scored at 20. And you wouldn't think, given that you'd think the moment might be too big for the Democratic Republic of the Congo against a team like Morocco, who's been in this situation many times, has qualified for the World Cup many times. But it's one of those things you kind of never know with these things. It would be certainly an absolute sensation if the DRC turned over Morocco and won that tie. It is hard to imagine it, though, because Morocco's been so good in Africa, has been qualifying regularly, and has played. They were so good in the in the qualifying. I mean, they were imperious. Sofiane Amrabat, who plays for my favorite Italian team, Fiorentina, quality midfielder. Munir El Haddadi, who was once of Barcelona's prolific youth academy and is doing pretty well at Sevilla. They've got some really top flight players again, and it's just funny because it's like Africa is just producing all these really good players and these really talented players, and as a result, the quality of football being what it is, it's only improving, and these teams are getting into the World Cup, and they're getting closer and closer to making major breakthroughs. Morocco is the favorite. They've just been so good so many times. I kind of feel like that it might be too big of a moment for DR Congo, but that's why they play the game. And then the last one is the one that I'm actually looking forward to the most. It's Mali, Tunisia. Tunisia's qualified for a bunch of tournaments. Mali is like Canada, who we'll discuss when we get to the North American qualifying. 4 years ago, Mali was nowhere in the qualifying. 4 years ago, Mali squeezed through the minnows round, if you will, the first round against Botswana, the mighty Botswana, the second round. Because they did it a little bit different, so they got a bye into round 2 from the minnows, and they weren't in the minnows round, and they squeezed through against the mighty power of Botswana, 3-2 on aggregate, having been behind after the first leg, and finished bottom of their group. They were in a group with Morocco, who went unbeaten in their group and won fairly comfortably and qualified for the World Cup. They were in the group of death. They had Morocco, Ivory Coast, Gabon, and Mali, and Mali finished last. But Lord, have they found a crop of really good players to come up all of a sudden, kind of like Canada, just kind of come out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, they've got a lot of really good players. Khalifa Koulibaly is one of them, is a player that a lot of big clubs are going to be looking at from Nantes. Ibrahim Kone, same thing. He's at Lorient in France. A lot of players looking at him. Moussa Djenepo has been a good player for Southampton in England. They've got Adama Traore, who's now off at Sheriff Tiraspol, but was at Wolves, and of course was once another Barcelona youth product. Very, very talented. The kind of guy that if he puts it all together can be one of the really great players. And Mali has just bubbled up. They've bubbled up out of nowhere, and they're a real threat against Tunisia, who, again, very experienced Tunisia, has qualified for several World Cups in a row, been in these playoffs before many times and gotten through. But if I had to pick in that one, I would pick Mali to qualify for their first World Cup, which, again, that would be sensational if they pull it off. So that's Africa and Europe. They're in playoffs. There's nothing like knockout football, but just as fun as these two-legged ties, one home, one away, that often are very tight, intense, and one moment out of 180 minutes is sometimes the difference. It's going to be exciting. I am looking forward to it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like it, share it around, leave your comments, because I'm certainly interested in your opinions. Thank you for watching, and we will come back with the rest of World Cup qualifying in parts. North America, Asia, South America are all reaching their interesting denouements, and I'm looking forward to talking about them. Thank you all very much.
That's it. We're done, right?